a Muslim chaplain on campus since the fall of 2019. He also serves as chaplain in the medical field and holds a graduate degree in religious studies from Stanford University. Sameer is interested in interfaith bridge building, social justice, and serving the student population at Marquette through spiritual support and pastoral guidance. He will be discussing the effects of COVID on the Muslim and immigrant community today.
Okay, should I start, Amanda?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It's been a busy day so far, and I'm happy to be here. I think for today's topic, there are two different aspects that must be kept in mind when we are talking about the types of population affected by COVID. And really, the topic or the theme for today's discussion is um, um, excuse me, is going to be social justice and what has been happening within the Muslim and the immigrant community. First thing to realize is there's a dichotomy between the immigrants, recent immigrants, and refugees who are Muslims in particularly the Milwaukee community, and then the Muslim population, which is second or now third generation Muslim population here in Milwaukee. So I want to give a little bit of background on that. So Muslim, immigration to America is very old. The one of the first Spanish explorers that came with guides or navigators who were Muslims from North Africa because they were already navigating the seas, and then they joined their Spanish or Italian neighbors to come and explore this new land. So that's something old, and then the from the history of slavery in this country, those who were brought from Africa, there were a good number of Muslims who were brought and kept here as slaves, and there's a lot of academic research done on that topic. But fast forwarding to Milwaukee now, there is a large Palestinian population that has been here for about two and now three generations that they came to work on the this was part of the Rust Belt or the car manufacturing that was happening in Michigan. Some of them came there and then they moved across the lake here to Milwaukee. So some of them Palestinian, some of them, many of them South Asian, as you know. South Asia, which is where my family is originally from, has the largest Muslim population in the world. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, those countries have the largest Muslim population. So that immigration to Milwaukee in particular and to the US and North America in general is now over 50, I would say over 70 years old. And the second and third generation of the Muslim Americans who were born and raised here have been in Milwaukee for quite some time. A good amount of them are in the medical field, are physicians or nurses. So both anecdotally that I know and in terms of numbers, the Muslim community here in Milwaukee, the American Muslim community, is very much involved in the medical field. Many of them are physicians and specialists and so on. The way that they have reacted, the way that COVID has affected them is very different. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then there is a large refugee and immigrant population, which is a lot more recent. And the reasons that they have come is due to war and other things happening in their own native places. So Somalians are in Milwaukee. Many of them are in Minnesota. That's the largest collection of Somalian Americans in North America, I believe. And then some of them have moved here. And then there's also Iraqis. There's a large 2,000, 3,000 families of Iraqis who have been here since 2012, 2013. And then there are Burmese who have come from Burma, which is a country, Myanmar, I guess that's the official term, that is between India and China. And then because of persecution there, these Muslims have come recently and have settled in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is one of the largest concentrations of Rohingya Muslims, Burmese Americans. So there's these two different ways, and how COVID has affected them is also very different. So I want to make that clear from now, that there's these two different types of populations within the larger Muslim community that we can look at and talk about. Okay. As for the uh, Muslim population here, the Muslim American generation, they have been very much active in organizing, in bringing together resources that they have. I think one community in Dallas raised over $500,000. And then in Milwaukee, also, they raised quite a bit of money to provide funds and food and clothing to those who are in need in different ways. And these funds came from the community, and then it went toward food, medical supplies. They already have a clinic that's been running here in Milwaukee, a free medical clinic that's on the weekends. I'm not sure if those timings changed, but they've been putting in their resources together to provide medical care for whoever wants to come and stop by and is in need of that. Um, Secondly, it's that these food drives, some of them I have been part of, and we did one every month. We've been doing one even before COVID started, every month, and now that kind of slowed down, but we picked up again, thankfully, in July, August, September. There's a women's shelter here in Milwaukee where we have been going, donating food, donating clothes, donating supplies, donating blankets, masks, school bags, and other supplies that they need. So one effect that this has had is that the efforts to help our fellow human being, which both in the Quran, in religious scripture, and in prophetic teaching, is very important to bring relief and comfort to our fellow human beings. So that's important, and those efforts have been stepped up with all the resources that these Muslim Americans had and put together here in Milwaukee. So that's one aspect of discussion. And secondly, for the immigrant population, for the population of Muslims that are from these countries which are affected by war and disease and such, and have been here for, excuse me, not too long, they've been affected in a different way. Because I think emotionally and culturally, especially for the parent generation that came and that has been here, there's been a lot of feelings of disenfranchisement, just not feeling very much connected to whatever is going on, because some of them may have restrictions on language, may not speak or understand English, may not know exactly what's going on. I know that the Burmese Muslim community here has um, a group of interpreters and translators who's been helping navigate the immigrant community, the refugees, with their medical needs, and helping them with that. But basically, they feel completely disconnected to some degree with whatever else is going on. The political rhetoric against refugees, the political rhetoric um, talking about Islamophobia, the political rhetoric, talking about the way that the immigrants or the refugees in the southern border of our country were treated. All that has created a certain number of a certain amount of stress and anxiety and fear and confusion and disorientation in this recently immigrated refugee and immigrant population. That's certainly tangible. That's certainly there, and that's certainly something that you can see in that first generation of immigrants and refugees that we have. Now they are working, of course, with the Muslim American population to kind of navigate that and go through that. So some of that, those are some of the needs that they have. There's also a third aspect to this, right? The third aspect to this is, I think, very much affecting, and now coming to Marquette, coming to those students and that population that is now in undergrad during their first or second year, and the first and second year are more affected than the third or fourth year. I see to some degree, in my experience, especially at Marquette, is they're kind of not sure of which um, career track to take, right? Because again, as I said, the Muslim population generally stresses going toward um, medicine, because the prophetic statement or hadith that we have in our tradition is knowledge is of two types, either knowledge of the body or knowledge of the soul, salvation of the body or salvation of the soul. So salvation of the soul is through religion and study of faith and religion, and then salvation of the body is through study of medicine. So they're kind of confused simply because their parents are now apprehensive. They're not sure if they send their son or daughter to medical school or to nursing school or to pharmacy, how much are they going to be exposed to COVID? How much are they going to be dealing with this? What is the future of medical care? All those things are present. All those anxieties and trepidations are there. So some of them are a little bit more cautious or confused as to how they can proceed in what should have been in their minds already a pre-made decision about which career path to pursue. So they're a little bit confused about that. The older generation, or I'd say those who are in their third and fourth year, are a little bit more confident, and they feel they've already um, they're a little bit more confident about what their career choice um, is, and they're just waiting for this to be over, and they're kind of just waiting for COVID to pass through the system, in their words, and to be able to continue pursuing the career choice that they had. So these are some of the things that are happening. These are some of the background to COVID and to the effects of COVID, especially on the Muslim community here in Milwaukee. Second, let me just. Okay. Um, in terms of social justice, in terms of the political scene, or the discussions about discrimination against minorities, the violence that is being witnessed by African American communities, and in terms of the protests that are going on, I think the Muslim community finds itself in side by side with the African American community to a certain degree, not to a completely 100% degree, and that is because the there's a segment of the Muslim population which is African American. There is a segment of the Muslim population here in Milwaukee that has come to Islam, African Americans who have come to Islam after their experiences of slavery and discrimination and so on here, and they have come to accept Islam, and they are expressing their own affiliation with that religion, and their struggles are certainly unique for them, and other immigrant or Muslim American communities don't come from that same trajectory and that same history. So there is a discussion, and it's a very gentle, in some places non-existent, and in some places a really robust discussion about how to express this need for social justice, need for equality, need for lack of discrimination, lack of institutional violence, of expression um, of brutality or violence against a certain group, how to articulate that in religious terms and how to come together in religious terms. What we usually do, for example, or what we have been doing in the last 2 years, is we had a peaceful march in Milwaukee, usually around this time, September or October, talking about social justice, bringing awareness. And I did that the last 2 years, and I had a Lutheran pastor and a Unitarian join me in the last 2 years. And there's a lot of public expressions of these kind of things. So the Muslim community now is kind of like everyone else, just staying careful with COVID and not being able to express themselves publicly, physically, but being part of this discussion and this expression of equality, of making the playing field a little bit more equal, and removing the discrimination that certain communities are facing. So that conversation is going on, and those things are going on within Muslim communities, and that is where we are. Those are some of the things that come to my mind when looking specifically at the community in Milwaukee. If there's any questions, any comments, any topics that we can pick up or I can elaborate on, please, Amanda, let me know. Or if there's anyone else that wants to um, open up certain discussions that I can elaborate on, because there's a lot of material. I'm just curious if there's anything specific that our audience wants to hear a little bit more about.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, or like Sameer said, wants him to talk about certain topics, you could unmute yourselves or send a message in the chat too, whichever works.
Oh, there's a chat. Yeah. Yeah. I think that one thing that's really coming through is the and this is, I don't know where exactly it's coming from. I think part of it might be, I mean, within the Muslim community, part of it might be expressing solidarity with the African American community and the African American Muslims, but there really is a search for the presence of Muslims and Islam in America, even going back before the first generation of immigrants from the Muslim American community. So to give you an example, my family came in the 50s, in the mid to late 50s. That's when they came and they settled on the East Coast, and I have generations of cousins and their children born and raised here. But before that, collective memories that, yeah, we were somewhere else. We were in Asia or in other countries. But now there's kind of a search, because immigration has been happening to America for a long time from different places. So in California, for example, in the 1880s and 1890s, there was a Muslim population that came from what was then British India, and they settled there. So there's a search now amongst Muslims to kind of go back and look at this trajectory of presence here, right? And then even going back, there's all these ancestry, DNA, all these things that are available to the common population now, and people are always tracing back their ancestry and DNA and seeing where they're from. All that is happening even with in the Muslim community, and then they are also trying to be curious about the presence of Muslims here at different times in history. So that's something very curious, and how that is. What I can anticipate is expressing itself is through solidarity with the African Americans, with the African American community being here, facing discrimination in different ways from different institutions and different places. So that's been an interesting aspect of all these things that have been going on. Yeah.
Sameer, this is Tom Kester
Yes.
from Campus Ministry. I'm just wondering, maybe you said this, I came a little bit late, but I wondered what the majority makeup of students, Muslim students at Marquette might be, or is there a majority, of background, country, or their parents' country, because they're American students now, but
Right. Uh, yes, Tom. So to answer that question, I think, um, the majority of them that are born here are born local. They're born here in Milwaukee, and it's mixed. A lot of them are South Asian. Their background is South Asian, is India and Pakistan. That's the majority South Asian, and then the rest are Arab, but their parents are of Palestinian origin. But again, the Palestinian idea or identity is not really grounded in one country. Because those Palestinians went to other Arab countries and then they moved from there either to Jordan or to Kuwait or to other countries that they were already immigrants to, and then they came here. But most of them are South Asian or Arab. That's the majority of the background of the parents um, of the students that we have at Marquette. Yeah.
yeah, great, thank you. And then I also wondered how the Black Muslim community intersects with them. We have the worship space right across from our office here in Campus Ministry, and I'm not sure that I see many Black Muslim students using that space, and I just wondered why that might be, or just how they connect with maybe a more traditional, I don't know if that's the right word or not, traditional Muslim student community here, the one that you just described.
Yeah. That discussion is happening within the Muslim community. I think uh, there is an African American community in Milwaukee, Muslim community in Milwaukee. They have their own mosque, they have their own center, and then they have there's some social justice. Oh, I'm sorry. There's some programs to provide them or to bring food or other things to that place. And some of the students that Muslim students at Marquette
Hi, sorry, I'm on a call right now, but go ahead. Do
are
you know where the key is?
those kind of projects. But that discussion is kind of ongoing between them about how to support the local Muslim African American community. We have some students on campus that are local from the local Muslim African American community, and they are. Um, I haven't been able to connect with them so far, but that's actually a good point. But this semester, I've connected with them in the last year. But the way that they're dealing with COVID and how COVID has affected their local communities, has affected the economic situation of their local congregants at that mosque. All those things are needs that are trying to be assessed and fulfilled slowly. And the Muslim students at Marquette are aware of that within their own congregation and communities and are trying to kind of bring a little bit of awareness and support to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Mm. There's another aspect that I want to shed some light on, which is how you see the other thing about the Muslim community is how there's a gender segregation within public life or within religious life, and men and women are separate in terms of how the community or the congregation is is fulfilling both how they perform their religious obligations and duties, both in terms of what is religiously required from them, and also in terms of how COVID and how this disease has affected them in many ways. So, for example, the schools in Milwaukee are virtual, right? So the public school system that there is now not in person. A lot of people had to scramble. And thankfully, where I am so far, it's not virtual for my children. But how COVID has affected that men and women differently is that the generally, if the children are in school, then the uh, ways of worship and the ways of being religious for the women is from the home or from the mosque. But now that they're not able to go to the mosque, that the centers, the religious places of worship are restricted and how many people can go, and children are home. That's also affecting the I mean, in general, this is, happening to anyone, but the way that uh, prayers are being performed, the way that, because Islam, you go and perform the Friday prayer in person, and that presence is restricted. So what I see is that COVID has made the expression of spirituality, of religion, open up in new ways. People are connecting more online. Everything is exclusively almost online. Any of the services that I do with my congregation, some of them are in person because we have enough space and we do restrictions and we do social distancing. But it's been interesting to see how people are doing so many more things from home and are taking advantage of the opportunities that they have to participate in their religious life deliberately from their homes. Right. So that's been interesting to see. Yeah. Yes, Mary Sue.
Okay, my mute button is always my challenge. I have Bernardo's joining me in the office, so tell me if the mask is okay to understand. So you mentioned in the Muslim community there being a clinic on weekends, and there's a lot of mobilizing in the Muslim community to provide services in Milwaukee. I'm wondering, in addition to these services, are particularly new immigrant families finding it hard to get service in sort of in general in Milwaukee, especially during COVID? Do they feel like they have access to health care and some of the other support services that other populations would have access to? Or they, you know, they feel restrictions about services or any discrimination in services as COVID challenges get stronger?
I think that I mean, in general, even without COVID,
Right.
I wouldn't say they felt discrimination. I think that they felt a sense of being, I mean, emotionally now being misunderstood, because I mean, I've worked with refugees that are from Somalia, from Burma, from Iraq, why they have come and what has brought them here and what is their personal story and journey. And as a chaplain, I'm very aware of those things. So,
Right.
so that is hard for them to process and to express and to be and to feel that they've been heard. Okay. So that has consistently been a challenge with or without COVID. COVID has made it harder for them. I think COVID has made it harder for them to feel comfortable telling their story, to talk about, because they have a set of medical conditions and diseases and things that they feel are very much part of their journey as refugees and immigrants fleeing war and other things. Um, and that has become more difficult for them to be able to articulate and express that during COVID times, because they feel they want to go in person. They feel they want to be seen because they can't express themselves physically. And now, if they're making a visit virtually with a doctor, or if they're on the phone with someone, they feel a little bit frustrated not being able to. Uh, they don't feel as much how do I say this, connected to the care that they feel that they should be receiving. Um, and then the Muslim clinic is there to kind of connect them and to give them a little bit of a sense of comfort and calm, and to connect them with medical professionals within the Muslim community and outside, to kind of understand their story and their history and what they feel is important for their own uh, 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 journey, what is part of their own journey, and what are their needs that are being fulfilled now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question about, there's this program on Marquette's campus called SEAL that like I was a part of last semester, and you tutor like high school and college refugee students that are from like Burma. And I was wondering if you know, because I don't know if you would know this, but if they've moved that like virtual, or like how that's kind of impacted those students specifically, because that would be all in person, but with everything happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know specifically about the program, but in different communities, and even in my congregation, um, we had Sunday school and other ways in which we were tutoring and helping the immigrant families that were here. And now what's happened is actually it's kind of picked up more because it's virtual, it's online, and more people are attending now than they would in person, which is strange. But it's also good because now I think we're getting a better cross section, a view of what the needs are and who are the people participating, and I think virtually they're present because they're more comfortable at home doing it from home. The students that we have in my community, in my congregations program, are there, um, and then they are being able to receive that tutoring, receive that guidance from other students that are a little bit older, or are children, are not children of immigrants. So they feel a little bit more confident being connected to them, which is very interesting to see how virtually in the times of COVID people have actually come together a little more intentionally and deliberately than they would in person. That's certainly one effect that's happened. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm. Of course. Any other topics that I can maybe try to explore a little bit more?
Oh, you can
Yeah,
go.
I'll just jump in here. Mary Sue, sorry. I was just wondering if there are particular issues in this election that students are, or the Muslim community in general, are really concerned about particularly. Is there something that stands out? COVID for everybody, I think, but is there anything else?
Yeah, yeah. There
Mhm.
certainly is. There is the big piece about the Muslim ban that was there about restrictions on immigrants from particular countries and certain countries. That discussion is ongoing. At the same time, they feel like many of the Americans, um, that the understanding of, due to all the political changes that have happened, I think that they've become more deliberate in trying to articulate and express their own faith, and people don't have an understanding of who they are or what their faith really means to them, not in terms of proselytizing, but in terms of just expressing where they are. That's certainly there, and there's a number of issues that they feel are important, especially during this election. I don't know. I don't have the statistical data to tell you, Tom, if they've more of them have registered to vote or more of them have become more politically active. I can tell you anecdotally that I certainly feel that's happened. I certainly feel that more of them have become more politically expressive of where their views are and trying to support candidates that they feel are um, are more in line with what their own goals are. I think that certainly happened. I don't know if that's happened generally within a younger generation. I know historically the younger generation, um, or those who are in the undergrad years may have had apathy toward the political system, but I can tell you certainly apathy is not there right now. That's certainly changed to a lot more involvement and expression, especially from the Muslim. I was speaking to one Muslim student this past weekend, and he talked about voting. He said, "I went, I voted." So that certainly happened.
Mhm. Thanks.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, the Muslim population is growing, both through immigration, both through the growing of the local population, and they are becoming more, especially in places like Michigan, where the population is very concentrated, and it's there. They're becoming more expressive and involved in the political system, and they feel that the political system has to, you know, is there for them to participate in as citizens. So that discussion is certainly going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You talked about career paths for students. Do any of them consider politics as a possible career choice?
Some of them might be, but things haven't changed really. I mean, talking just to 2 weeks ago, I was at Friday Prayer and at Marquette, and talking just to the students there and at other campuses. The political choice is still the same. It's very much uh,
Mhm.
focused into medicine and law and those things, and they're really dentists, physicians, nurses. They really want to go toward that path. And when I was an undergrad many hundred years ago, I was alone because I was doing humanities. I remember there's only two of us, me and another person. We were doing humanities. Almost everyone else was just doing medicine or law. And I think to a large extent, that still is the same career path that's being chosen because of a number of reasons. Because their parents are already in that, or they feel it's financially secure for them, or there's a religious injunction encouraging that. All those are factors that are going toward that. I don't know if any of them has done any political science or anything like that. I'm curious to know. Yeah.
Mhm. And I would think that the discrimination against uh, Muslim politicians that we see is, not helpful. But I think that maybe they are becoming role models. Some of those people.
Hmm. Hmm. To a degree, there's public increased public understanding or discussion of Muslims in politics. But I think the picture is larger. There are other Muslim politicians in different places that we don't see or hear about, and they are participating in the democracy in their own way. And those who are aware of these things are following those figures in different places. So
Mhm.
that's also happening. Um, but I think in the news we only get a little bit of the actual picture of what's going.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Um, they also find a need, I think, here to articulate uh, the values of social justice, of equality, of of um, of removing the feelings of being disenfranchised. Uh, that is certainly, I think, something that's on the minds of a lot of young Muslims in the country altogether. Also, they want to be able to have a more just world, have a world that is tangibly better, and not just in terms of expression of values. And someone, I mean, someone very nicely I mean, this was addressed not to me directly, but to academia. Just academia. Uh, there's a young person I was talking to, the same person who said that they voted. Said, "What do you do?" I said, "This is what I do as a chaplain in healthcare or at university," and he is 19. He said, "We need to do more than just talk. Just sit there and bring my view and your view and have a nice discussion." He said, "I don't want to hear that anymore because I know what I believe. I know what others believe, and that's fine. But he expressed, and I think that's part of his generation now, Tom, that he said, I want to do something tangible to make sure that I have the freedom to have my belief, and so does everybody else. Uh, that discrimination doesn't exist. So I think the a call to arms, a call to action, a call to move forward through these tangible things, and providing to calling for social justice, marching, becoming more active in project efforts in their local communities. All that is happening. All that I can see tangibly is happening more in the new generation. They're more aware of it. They're more expressive of it, and they're less talk, more work to that. And that's a little bit that's inspiring. That's certainly inspiring to see that. Yeah. You know.
My sense is that having on the East Coast where there are a number of elected officials, at least I was, who are Muslim, and and I'm thinking a lot at the local level, but very prominent. I'm wondering how, and Midwest feels like it's just sort of, so don't want to say behind, but it just has not experienced civic life in a way that's diverse and welcoming. And Milwaukee isn't a gateway city for I think most of the time. How do we here build a community which makes mentors accessible, especially on a campus community? In the East Coast, which is densely populated, urban, often, just proximity of people to one another makes it easier sometimes for mentors to arise among young populations and show them the way. How do we do that in Milwaukee? If that makes sense. I know the population is growing, but we're not in Michigan. We're in Milwaukee. How do we, not just on the level certainly of personal relationship, but more on the level of institutional pathways?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yes. That's a wonderful way of looking at it, Mary Sue. And I think part of it, speaking to the Muslim students, is they are now acutely aware more than the generation before them of blocks or obstacles that may be available, that may be present on those institutional pathways, and they are more expressive of when they are traversing those pathways. I think from the other side, as people who are in institutions, I think advocating, encouraging, watching for them to, if they face or if they feel they face any kind of obstacles, and mentoring them on that path is a wonderful thing. If we are able to accomplish that and help them on their journey and kind of expressing, but part of me also feels that they are still exploring who they really are. I mean, faith is there, but that's consistent, and that's there. But they're also kind of, it's no one lives in a vacuum, right? So their identity now is being formed very heavily by the political scene in the country now, right, on each side, and where that takes us, or where it takes them, when they somehow, I think, when they mature, and then when they find themselves expressing their identity, will remain to be seen. So they're still navigating these pathways while absorbing and participating in everything else that's going on. Um, so I'm curious as to where that journey will take them. Yeah. You know, climate change is a big thing for them. Climate change, and being really angry at the older generation for not paying as much attention as they should have been to climate change. That's a big issue. It wasn't there previously, but not on this level, but it's certainly there for them. You know, there's this it just feels that they are overwhelmed, and at the same time they are tenacious, and they're able to find, or looking for, they're confident in their own ability to um, find solutions for the challenges that they're facing. Yeah.
Sameer, is there, I've seen in different places, sort of sustainability groups, faith-based sustainability groups, including Muslim groups or interfaith groups. Is there a you talk about climate change. Are there any faith-based Muslim organizations in Milwaukee that focus on environmental sustainability?
Yes, there's Wisconsin Green Muslims in Milwaukee.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a Wisconsin Green Muslim. Some of them I know. They've had events in the past. They've talked about very intentionally sending reminders, especially in the month of Ramadan and such, when we get together almost every day and there's food, kind of reminding people to just start simple with their utensils and food, pledges that they have, and people I know, families are part of it. We don't straws. We don't use plastic straws. We don't use metallic straws at home that we clean. Things like that. Yes, these are all local efforts, and there is a group within the Milwaukee Muslim community, the Green Muslims, who have been doing these kind of activities, and they're also present in different places.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Green Ramadan drives are there. So Green Ramadan drives, people are encouraged to grow their own vegetables at home if they can, or have community gardens, those kind of things. Reduce the use of plastics, recycle things together. All that is part of that. Just to make the impact on the environment a little bit less severe. Yeah. It's called the climate justice movement. That's what they called. Yeah. Cool. Amanda, is there anything else?
No, I was just gonna say, if anyone else, just like maybe take one more question if other people have anything they want to add. But I just want to put it out there that next Wednesday we have another Super Substance at noon on Teams. We don't have the topic yet, but just check your email for that. And I'm also gonna send in the chat the link to sign up for the weekly email if you're not signed up for that.
Thank you.
And Amanda, can I also just remind people, if they've enjoyed these conversations or past conversations, and they know folks who couldn't attend, all the conversations can be seen through YouTube off the Super Substance site. off the Facebook page, right? So, yeah. So we hope that these discussions are discussions which keep having fruit in the community as people have time in their schedules to listen.
Great.
Thank you everyone for coming, and Sameer for speaking.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Sameer.
Right. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.